This is the Terracotta Army. 8,000 warriors buried over 2,000 years ago. One of the greatest wonders of the world.
The Terracotta Army is a lie. For half a century, we've been told a story of a glorious imperial guard. But that story is about to crumble. Advanced AI has just decoded inscriptions hidden all over the 8,000 warriors, in places no one was ever meant to see.
We have no other finding that could back, some of the claims up. But the big question is, how much of that is true?
Forget everything you've learned. The truth is infinitely more shocking. The army holds a secret about what happened to the hundreds of thousands of people who built it. And once you hear what the messages say, you will never look at these silent soldiers the same way again. Buried for millennia. For nearly half a century, the Terracotta Army has stood as one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries in human history. Its sheer scale and silent presence capture the imagination of the world. Beneath the fields of Xi'an, China, a subterranean city of clay warriors, horses, and chariots has waited, untouched by time. The thing nobody tells you is that its discovery in 1974 was a complete accident, the result of local farmers just trying to dig a well. What emerged from that dusty earth was beyond anything archaeologists had dared to imagine. An entire army of more than 8,000 life-size soldiers, over 130 chariots, and some 670 horses. The most shocking fact is they were all assembled in perfect formation, facing east as if ready to march into battle. Each figure was unique. The faces bore different expressions: stern, resolute, sometimes almost sad. Hairstyles and armor varied by rank and division. They were crafted with a level of detail that spoke not just to artistry, but to a deliberate attempt to capture reality. You see, these were not mere statues. They were intended to be guardians, a ghostly legion set to defend the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. In life, he commanded more than 1 million soldiers, and in the afterlife, he demanded nothing less. The emperor's mausoleum itself, a sprawling necropolis covering 22 square miles, remains mostly unexcavated, said to contain rivers of mercury and traps to keep intruders out forever. For scholars worldwide, the Terracotta Army became a symbol of imperial power. But not all things are what they seem. Beneath the spectacle, faint, almost invisible markings clung to the statues. Lines, curves, and tiny characters were pressed into the clay, hidden by centuries of dust. For years, these were dismissed as nothing more than the stamps of workmen or accidental scratches. The army, so silent and steadfast, kept its secrets close. But the quiet was about to be broken in a way no one saw coming. Secrets and silence. As technology advanced, teams began to re-examine the statues with new methods. What they started to find was a pattern of mystery that defied easy explanation. Some markings looked like Qin dynasty script, but mixed among them were twisted characters and unfamiliar symbols that appeared more like a cipher than a language. To put it mildly, this was weird. Many of these marks were hidden inside the hollow torsos, carved on the interior of armor plates, or scratched onto the undersides of feet. There was no clear system, no logical arrangement. What many overlooked was how these symbols seemed to cluster. Groups of statues within certain rows carried similar markings, as though they were part of a secret club the rest of the army didn't belong to. The official theory was that these were just administrative codes to track which workshop made each part. After all, the project was immense, requiring an estimated 700,000 workers over several decades. But this practical explanation began to fall apart. The codes didn't match any known records, and they repeated in strange, almost ritualistic ways. Privately, some archaeologists began to wonder if the inscriptions concealed something deeper, a message or a warning. The problem was access. Many marks were in places that could only be reached by damaging the precious statues. So for years, the mystery was left alone. But the whispers didn't stop. People are crazy about these kinds of unsolved puzzles. Rumors circulated of researchers who got too close to the truth. In the 1980s, a restoration team was rumored to have secretly dismantled a few statues with odd markings. Soon after, several team members fell mysteriously ill or resigned, refusing to speak about what they found. Then, in the 90s, another team's funding was abruptly cut after their acoustic scans suggested some warriors contained something other than clay inside. The message was clear. Some secrets were meant to stay buried. And then the machines arrived, ready to uncover what humans were forbidden to see. Codebreakers of the Clay Army. The story of the Terracotta Army entered a new era as technology lifted the curtain on what could no longer be denied. Scientists began to sweep the soldiers' surfaces with light beyond what the human eye can see. Ultraviolet light revealed faded pigments, resurrecting the painted faces and armor lost to time. But it was infrared scanning that first exposed the true secret. It uncovered shallow carvings pressed into the clay where surfaces once appeared flawless. Suddenly, an army that seemed silent was found to be covered with countless marks. Then came three-dimensional laser mapping, capturing the minute topography of each warrior's surface. With every scan, digital models emerged that could be rotated, magnified, and dissected. These virtual statues allowed researchers to peel away layers of dust and time, probing angles where flashlights could never reach. Here, under an armpit or inside a hollow torso, the lasers illuminated clusters of fine script that no one had ever detected. But even with all this new data, the meaning remained a puzzle until the rise of artificial intelligence. The task was impossible for any single scholar, but not for a machine. Algorithms were trained on thousands of samples of ancient Chinese scripts, regional dialects, and forgotten character forms. The neural networks didn't just learn to recognize characters, they learned the logic of dead languages. What emerged was astounding. Patterns that human eyes had dismissed as random scratches were revealed to be deliberate. The AI found phrases that started on one warrior's knee and concluded on another's shield. It was a tapestry of intent, a message distributed across an entire army. The system mapped the inscriptions not just as language, but as a code, with symbols repeated and reordered like an ancient encryption. The centuries-long silence was fracturing, and the first translated words were about to terrify the world. A chorus of suffering. The first translations stunned the researchers. The marks, once dismissed as meaningless, began to reveal something deeply unsettling. They did not catalog workshops or glorify the emperor. Instead, the clay carried a quieter, far more personal story. The AI unearthed what was never meant for imperial eyes. One phrase appeared over and over, sometimes fractured by time, but always unmistakable. Constructed by suffering. The words were inscribed in cramped, desperate script, so faint that only digital enhancement made them legible. These were not declarations of pride. They were evidence of misery. On the interior of an officer's statue, a single sentence was carved with furious precision. He took my name and burned it in stone. No emperor is named, but the implication was clear. Identity stolen and memory deliberately erased. Other inscriptions grew darker. A shattered torso, when pieced together virtually, yielded the phrase, "Here lies the departed, and those who served them." It wasn't a boast. It was an admission that this army was as much a memorial for the enslaved workers as it was for their emperor. The most haunting line was found under the foot of a kneeling archer, hidden from every previous inspection. "I worked until my hands broke. Let him walk over me forever." The words were both a curse and a surrender. For generations, it was assumed the builders of this wonder were lost to history. Yet, their testimony emerged. The workers who shaped this silent legion were not voiceless. They had left a record, not in books, but in clay, buried where only technology could one day hear their suffering. These were not the laments of a few. The phrases repeated on hundreds of statues forming a tapestry of torment. The army, once seen as a marvel of unity, now appeared as a mass grave of voices. The legacy of Qin Shi Huang wasn't just unification, it was a world built on fear and pain. But are we sure this is the whole story? Are we missing a key detail? An emperor's shame. For half a century, the world has been captivated by the silent, steadfast gaze of the Terracotta Army. We see them as a masterpiece of ancient artistry, a symbol of unimaginable power, and the ultimate expression of one emperor's ego. But this entire time, we may have been looking at them all wrong. The thing is, people watching this are looking for a mystery, And what scientists have recently uncovered is bigger, darker, and more profound than anyone ever imagined. We thought we were looking at an emperor's eternal guard. We might actually be standing at the edge of a 2,000-year-old crime scene. The story always began with Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the unifier of China, a man obsessed with life, death, and legacy. His quest for immortality was legendary, sending expeditions in search of mythical elixirs and employing alchemists to brew potions of eternal life. When those efforts failed, he pivoted to the next best thing, conquering death itself by recreating his worldly empire in the afterlife. The necropolis he commissioned was the most ambitious funerary project in human history. It was a sprawling subterranean palace, a scale model of his entire domain, complete with rivers of flowing mercury and ceilings studded with pearls to mimic the cosmos. The Terracotta Army was to be its primary defense force. For centuries, history books told chilling stories about the building of the emperor's tomb. The Han Dynasty historian Sima Xi'an, writing less than a century after the emperor's death, described a place of terrifying wonder and brutal secrecy. His ancient texts whispered of laborers entombed alive to protect the secrets of the necropolis, of the artisans who crafted its treasures being sealed inside its walls so they could never reveal its layout or its weaknesses. For generations, these were treated as legends, the kind of exaggerated, grim tales often told about tyrants to cement their fearsome reputations. They were historical footnotes, dismissed as macabre folklore. But with the recent decoding of previously untranslatable inscriptions found on bone fragments and pottery shards near the burial complex, the legends sharpen into something unbearably real. These weren't grand imperial decrees. They were something far more personal and desperate. Scratched onto the hidden inner surfaces of armor plates and the soles of the soldiers' boots were names, hometowns, and final heartbreaking messages. Archaeologists, using advanced imaging technology, have brought these faint etchings to light. They are a scattered, hidden record of the condemned. The inscriptions confirm the historical accounts with terrifying precision. Many of the 700,000 workers conscripted for this monumental task never went home. They were not merely laborers, they were prisoners, and this tomb was their final cage. With this revelation, the entire meaning of the Terracotta Army has shifted. Is this truly the Emperor's grand legacy, or is it a monument to a massacre? Was it a symbol of a newly unified China's power, or a testament to a cruelty so vast that we just didn't know how to read the evidence? The debate is now raging, spilling out of academic journals and into the public consciousness. You can see this everywhere, from heated online forums to new museum exhibits that are being hastily rewritten. The narrative is changing in real time. For the millions of visitors who walk along the raised platforms, peering down into the pits in awe, the soldiers now look different. The silence of the vast hangar feels heavier, charged with a new, haunting energy. Each of the 8,000 unique clay faces, once seen as a marvel of individualized portraiture, now seems to hide a story of agony and coercion. The stoic expressions no longer look like discipline. They look like resignation. The grandeur is still undeniably there, but now it's inseparable from the grief of the 700,000 souls forced to build it, knowing their reward was a silent, unmarked grave. Did this all happen overnight? Of course not. The evidence was likely there all along, hidden in plain sight. But the revelation feels sudden and world-shattering because it forces us to question the very nature of the history we thought we knew. The voices from the clay have spoken. But does this horrifying truth diminish the wonder, or does it make it an even more powerful human story? Let us know below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.